So I am in one of those weird cocoon phases where everything seems to be falling apart and coming together at the same time. And, I guess that's what becoming a big pile of ooze is like before you get to become a butterfly, right? I mean, I've done this before in my life, and I feel like we're all, at various points in our lives doing this. But at this age, it feels kind of awkward. Um, I have interest in moving forward in certain aspects in my life, and yet no clue how to do it. Um, I keep having experiences that are pushing me out of my comfort zone, where I currently am. So it's like clearly time to move on in certain areas of my life. Um, but this period is so very uncomfortable. The only thing that I have that's fairly comfortable at all is my green tea I bought, um, which has been a nice ritual this week. Is starting my day with tea. Um, Trying to get my stretches in. Trying to be conscious of my diaphragm and um, my body movements and whether or not I'm holding on to past trauma anywhere in my body and trying to move it out. And as I do that and I shift through the trauma, um, the real life experiences that I built as safeguards or bandages or um, things that I thought were, for me are separating from me in sometimes a fairly painful way. Um, it's never easy when things change. There's always there's always a point where there's pain because you've got to either take off a band-aid or, take off a scab. Although doctors probably, say you shouldn't do that, but, we always do, right? Um, but that point where something breaks away, I think in the Tarot deck, it's the Three of Swords, the breaking of the abscess. Depending on which deck you use, I've studied a lot of different decks, and the traditional deck that everyone uses, I have never actually been drawn to myself as a reader, but in the decks that I have used, there is the Three of Swords, and the Druid Tarot is about the three pathways of learning, which the most wisdom filled is suffering. And so I wish I could remember the quote, um, but it ends with suffering much is like where true wisdom is found. And in the Mythic Tarot, which is based off of Jungian psychology, the Three of Swords is about the breaking of the abscess, the facing of the uncomfortable truths you never wanted to acknowledge about your current situation, and really having to break the abscess open in order for the the sick blood, the toxic blood, the illness in your body to come out, or the illness in your life to come out so that your life can purify. And the imagery on that specific deck is like very much like that. There's a body laying in a watery tub, and there's three people stabbing the person laying in the tub. And it's about, how, you have to lance the wound sometime for the pus to come out or for like I said, like the illness to come out. And so I've been having experiences like that in my life where just in between the good things, there are things where I am having to poke a blister that needs to pop. I'm having to, and these are metaphorical blisters, obviously. Although I am having some issues with blisters. which I actually am thinking is a good sign, like it's like kind of alignment, right? But moving beyond that, it's giving me the space, though, for the healing to take place that needs to take place so that I can move forward in my life, which is important, right? Like you can't hold on to the past and have arms that are open to grasp the future. And so the last couple of days have been slightly painful. A lot of crying, a lot of grief, a lot of sadness. And that's okay, because that's it's part of the territory of moving forward in your life. But at some point today, I found this source of excitement, this like feeling of overwhelming joy come over me, and the type of freedom that you get when you break free from something that's no longer serving you, like the burden is gone. And not to say that anything was a burden, but the weight that I was carrying from trying to tie myself to a situation that no longer resonated with me was really starting to wear on my nervous system, to a point where I just, was becoming a version of myself that wasn't me. And it was really an important, grieving period, honestly, so that I could move forward in my life. With excitement, I mean, like, there's a lot of trepidation in doing something new, but I'm also like super, super excited. I almost let something talk me out of it. I think that's also par for the course, right? Whenever you're trying to do something new, the universe will always test you, be like, are you sure you want this? You are going to have to still face some stuff. Are you sure you want this? And for a second there, I questioned whether or not I really, really wanted it. And I was like, ooh, gonna have to face that. Not sure I want to do that. Let's maybe just not do that. And then I realized, like, I felt it inside, like when you know that you're ready to move on in something. I felt it inside today. I felt it inside really hard, just like, I no longer resonate with where I'm at. I no longer resonate with like what's going on around me, and it's time to let go of even the things. Like, I started calculating what things I was going to start getting rid of that don't resonate with me anymore. And I used to be really attached to my possessions, not in a materialistic way, but after my father passed away, everything contained memory to me. Everything contained emotions inside. I remember in 8th grade, I had gone to Toronto for a class trip for like a week. That's how long we were gone. We did a lot of really cool stuff. We went to the Ontario Science Centre. We went to see the Phantom of the Opera at the Pantages Theatre. Sat pretty close. It was very nice. We went to Medieval Times and Tournament. We went to the Eaton Centre Mall. We did a lot of really cool stuff. We went to Casa Loma. I don't know if you know anything about these places, but they're very cool if you're ever there on a vacation. Like, check them out. Casa Loma is really interesting. It's a castle. Anyways, I think the thing I remember most was like the smell of manure from the horses in the basement pool / horse area. It was and this really cool chair. Anyways, that was a total segue. Anyways, I wonder if they have Segway tours there. Again, sorry. So I had gotten this hat, and I love hats. I've always loved hats. And it was this really cool Nike hat. And at the time, I really loved Nike. And I was so excited about this hat. And for a frame of reference of time, we went in like the first week of June, I want to say. It's the first week of June. Because it was right before, I went to a Catholic school, so it was right before 8th grade graduation. The 8th grade always goes on a week-long class trip. And we hopped on our charter bus and went. So this is like June. I want to say before the end of June. We went to Cedar Point, and I was riding this water ride. I think it's called Thunder Canyon. I don't really remember. It's been a while. And you ride in these circular tubes with a group of people, and you go under different water. And I had worn my hat, right? Because like it's sunny. I don't want to get a sunburn. That's the point of hats. I took my hat off and I tossed it to my friend because I was about to go under a waterfall, and it slipped off his finger, and now it is in Lake Erie, probably decomposed. And I cried. Oh man, did I cry. I cried and cried and cried, and I tried not to because it's embarrassing. Being in 8th grade and crying. But I cried like a baby. I cried because I had so much meaning in those possessions. But now I'm looking at all the things that I have, and I'm just like, if it's not a tool I can use, I don't need it. If I haven't used it in like a year, contiguously or often, I don't need it anymore. If it's not something I see me using within the next year, I don't need it anymore. If it's too big for me to travel with, I can just rebuy a better suited version for myself. And that wasn't always the case. I used to have these like really deep connections with all of these things. And that's been an exciting progression for me to look at all the stuff that I have and be like, I can let go of that, I can let go of that, I can let go of that, I don't need that anymore. And to feel safe and comfortable doing that. To not have this overwhelming, like, oh my gosh, but this thing means so much to me. Like, not that things don't mean things to me, but like, it's like, I used to keep memento boxes of everything. Like, the wrist bracelet from the concert. I had concert stubs from like my first concerts in my wallet for a really long time. Like, a really long time. Because for some reason those things like had meaning for me. And now there's like not those types of things like around me anymore. I've learned how to let go of that stuff. But I do have quite a collection of tools and resources of stuff that I had interest in and that I'm either not interested in pursuing anymore or that I'm ready to let go of to get a different version of. Sometimes you buy something and you think this is the thing that's going to fit me and what I'm doing, and it doesn't end up being the thing that fits you. And I don't know, it's just an interesting cocoon phase. My battery is going to die, so hang on a minute. I guess we're going to pause this and come back. Okay, so where was I? Yes, things and letting go of things. Took the opportunity to make some more tea as well. Oh, that's hot. So, I mean, it's like I'm breaking up with my old life. And not only am I breaking up with my, like, you know what I mean? Like when you go through a breakup, you get rid of a lot of stuff. And I'm not dating anybody by any means, like, but I am, breaking up with my furniture, 'cause I don't plan on taking that with me, and just all kinds of different things that I need to figure out what I'm going to keep and what I'm going to let go of. And it's just been really an interesting day for me to kind of sit around and think about that. Not sit around, but like to really put some effort into observing what feels freeing to let go of and what I feel like is going to serve me in the future, And I'm pretty excited, honestly. I'm pretty excited about the changes that are happening for me. Like I said, the past couple of days have been a little more tumultuous. I, had some fairly painful experiences. but they were emotionally relieving versus painful, I guess. You know, most of the time when you go through something that's like full of grief, all you can think about is the pain, you know. Um, but there's clarity in those moments. There's opportunity in those moments when you move away from something, when you let something go, when you move towards something else. Um, and I think that that's what I'm finding myself, you know, caught between the excitement of moving forward and the pain and the grief of breaking apart. Things that I had built that, you know, literally had built in the hopes that things would work out here for me, but they aren't. This is the place where the unhealed version of me needed to do a lot of healing. You know, this is kind of like the phase of my life that was like a hospital, I guess, you know, or a meditation center. Not even, because it wasn't very like meditative. Every time I meditate here, people think I'm doing something that I'm not. Because I really like to meditate under trees, and then I get like attached to specific trees. So I like to go to like the same place over and over again and meditate in those areas because I have grown a bond. It's like an energetic thing. I'm weird. It's okay. I like that part about myself, but I don't know. And I say that with like the lightest, I don't know what they say, like with a grain of salt. Because every time I have tried to leave this place, I have come back. But maybe it's because I wasn't healed yet, you know? I didn't feel like. I just keep waking up feeling myself in another place already. Feeling myself dragged down here, and the idea of being somewhere else, not just like, oh, anywhere else, like the idea of building a life in a new place as something that will be rewarding. And I remember feeling that way when I decided to move here. That the place that I was living was, you know, dragging me down, and that I needed to move to a place that was filling me with something else, you know, excitement, purpose, adventure, education, and, you know, all of those things are being offered to me again. And I'm excited about that. I don't know. I just, the cocoon phase is weird, you know? How's my hair? There we go. It's really interesting how, you know, I've decided to kind of let go of certain things, and other things have come back into my life. Like certain skincare routines are coming back like really easily that were a struggle for me for a while. My hair is starting to just want to look better more often. I have more energy, and I think that that is one of those things where when you are holding on to that abscess, back to the Three of Swords, when you are, you know, being unwilling to look at something that's causing you pain, you shut down your energy flow. You shut down a piece of you that has the gumption to get up and go and do stuff. And I'm starting to regain that for myself. I'm starting to really to have the energy to do things, like to set up routines for myself that are healthy. My diet has changed. My cravings have changed. I don't know, my overall level of well-being has changed, and I think that's partially because I'm putting my well-being before other things now. Before I would have put I don't know, just other stuff. Like, it's hard to explain. Like outside perspective would have weighed more heavily on me than whether or not I liked what I was doing. And then because that would have weighed more heavily on me, I either would not have continued the thing that was, starting to nourish me, or when I did it, I would feel a sense of grief. I think grief is the right word. Then Good Grief, Charlie Brown. That whole feeling of just like, why does somebody have to be negative? And that is like a huge thing going on in the world in general. There's a lot of people who are feeling a lot of different types of ways about things that are going on. There's a lot of grief. There's a lot of upset feelings. A lot of people feeling like things aren't fair, and they're not in a lot of places. And there is no shortcut, clear-cut answer for those situations. Things get really complicated in life. And I think the only answer to that is to try to have more love for everyone's suffering. But you create the capacity for that by loving yourself appropriately. You create the capacity for having understanding for another person by having understanding for yourself, and forgiving yourself for where you failed or where you feel like you failed, because it's never really been a failure if you learned. It's only been a failure like if you continue to repeat the same pattern and process, and that pattern and process hurts you or hurts someone else in the process. So much of what the worldview is about trying to be better than somebody else, or having ownership of this or that, or accumulating material resources, instead of about how I treated this person or what good I accomplished. I don't know if you can hear the music in the background. I'm not sure if somebody's playing an instrument in my complex or if somebody's just playing an album, but it's kind of lovely. Like I was saying, though, so much of what the world is experiencing in so many places, and I'm talking about the violence in the world, and it's interesting to me too how only certain types of violence are chosen. Like, out of all of the places that have conflict in their countries, we really, as a world, only focus on 2 currently. And there's so many more. But your headlines will only tell you about 2 of them. And that's interesting to me as well, because there's so much more going on than what, we choose to focus on as a society. And those things are happening because any group of people feels like they need to have more, or feels like they don't have enough. And those things are often true, especially in the places where there is actual conflict. People are starving, people are dying, people are grieving for the people they've lost. And, my very first world experience of having the same type of thing happen to me, grieving the things that I've lost, having extreme amounts of illness, um, going through the pain of, different types of abuses in my life, and knowing that I deserved better, but not knowing how to get better for myself. Not, I wasn't getting better treatment for myself, how to advocate for myself. It's such a natural urge to lash out in a violent way when those types of things happen. But it's really important that these experiences, whether we're attached to them through, shared experience, shared suffering, or we're not attached to them at all and we're just watching from an outside perspective, like these are lessons for all of us to learn to have more compassion, more understanding, more forgiveness, more empathy, and less of a focus on what we can have materialistically for ourselves. What good can we do in the world? Who can we help? First, we have to help ourselves, because that's how we learn how to help, how to answer a need. Really simply, like if you can't understand the feeling of hunger in your body and you've never been really hungry, then when somebody tells you that they're really hungry, you're not really going to understand how to help them. But that's like a pretty natural thing. Everybody has had hunger in their life at some point, And so when somebody says they're hungry and they look at you, if you are genuinely in touch with the times that you've been hungry, you're like, man, I've got to feed that person. Got to help that person get some food. That's not hard, right? When we come to these mass scale issues, it becomes harder to identify how to help those people, how to help those things, how to help those situations, how to come up with, good conflict resolution. Because there's a conflict there for a reason. Somebody wants something. Whether it be somebody wants more control or more resources or more money, or somebody wants the people who are already in control, like, when you talk about like a revolt. They want more access to their rights. They want more understanding for themselves. And as children, we display this very eloquently. As toddlers, we throw tantrums, we yell, we scream, we cry, we pound the floor. We demand that we are seen. And to me, war always kind of feels like that. Like a lot of very adult tantrum throwing and defending of that as well. Not to say anything belittling about the people who are, fighting for their countries or fighting for their freedoms, but it's always, the pathological violence of being a toddler and how we are toddlers and how we emotionally show up for ourselves is prevalent in how we choose to enact violence on other people in order to get our way. And the world seems to be displaying a lot of that right now. People not feeling heard, people not feeling understood, people literally starving because, getting your way is more important than whether or not people eat. And that's just, I think a big lesson for all of us to start to understand how to show up, not only for ourselves, but for other people. Because once we start, again, like I said, showing up for ourselves through understanding and wisdom and compassion and love, we develop the skills to witness somebody else in their suffering and know how to help them in a way where they can begin to help themselves. You don't want to just go into, let's, say that there is a community that is starving. You want to teach them how to grow food. You want to teach them how to have sustainable resources for themselves. because if not, they just become dependent on you. Now, that means setting up the infrastructure of how to do that. It means teaching them the skills. It doesn't mean just handing them a book and being like, read this book and then you can do it. You know, none of us in elementary school were just handed a book and someone said, read, and we started reading. You know, it took a lot of lessons. It took a lot of feedback. It took a lot of walking side by side and hand in hand to get good at reading. And it's the same way when people are struggling to get their basic needs met. They are in a system or in a place or in a situation where they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to accomplish those things without doing what they're doing now or laying down and suffering. And all over the world, there seems to be people who are okay, I guess is the word, with other people not having basic needs met. And I think that comes from a lack of compassion and understanding that we're all human beings and we all deserve to have a good quality of life. You know, we were all born for a reason. We are all a celebration of the universe and its ability to create. We are all cherished entities, spiritually speaking. You know, like we were all developed to come here and teach lessons and learn lessons and exist. And it seems like, you know, people have become a number or something that doesn't matter to others. And all that shows me is that inside, those people don't even matter to themselves. Material things matter. Gain matters. Not experience. Not, you know, humanity. And I think it's time for us all to view all of the conflicts that are going on as a lesson to learn how to love one another better. To be able to stand in a place and say, I can see your point of view and I can see your point of view, and I want to see you both be well. You know, there's not a lot of that. People think that if you can understand both sides of the situation, that you don't, you know, care, I guess is the word. And that's not necessarily true either. It's that wisdom comes from the center place. Wisdom comes from the idea that everybody deserves to have a basic sense of freedom, and that means sometimes compromise. Doesn't mean you're going to get your way. It doesn't mean you're going to have the ultimate freedom that you desire. It means that there are compromises, that there are places in which you say, you know, this is not negotiable for me. This is a boundary that is not negotiable for me. Like I have to eat to stay alive. I have to drink water to stay alive. And even in this country, there are places that don't have clean water. In a first world country, there are people who don't have homes. There are people who starve. And rather than saying, well, let's develop a system where people who are capable of helping help, there's criticism of the systems of the people who use the systems that we have in place. There's shame. There's not nearly enough for those people in the first place. And this is supposed to be the best country in the world, right? According to the people who live here and the people who run it. And if that is the type of problem that one of the biggest countries in the world has, Of course, there are problems in other countries where people are not eating, where people have no housing, where people don't have basic rights, where they don't have basic freedoms. And I don't think it has to do with politics. And I don't think it has to do, I think it has to do with basically we have stopped seeing people as people. We've stopped seeing the humanity, the love in the eyes of another person. We've stopped addressing people on a soul level, and we've started seeing everything as something material. And I know that this doesn't seem like it connects, but it does. Because I used to put such a deep connection on material things. I used to have, I wasn't treated very well by people in my childhood. I wasn't, I didn't feel cared for. I had my basic needs met. Like, that was never a problem as a child. I have gone through stints as an adult where I did not, but as a child, I had all of my basic needs met except for understanding, love, compassion, companionship, direction, leadership, any type of, actual parenting. That didn't, I had to develop those things for myself. And I had to, help myself in a lot of ways get through things that children shouldn't have to navigate alone. But I always had my basic needs met, so that was, not ideal, but it was okay. I wasn't starving and trying to figure out how to handle my grief. I had food, and then I had the ability to have the processing resources to develop emotional skills. And, as uncomfortable and undesirable as that was, there are places and people who can't even get to the places where they're dealing with their emotional issues because their survival skills need to be developed, because they don't have food, they don't have shelter, they don't have, the right to have a self. And I don't think that stems from anything political. I think that stems from the idea that people are putting the material above the human. You would rather have more things for yourself than make sure that everybody has access to basic things. And we need to do better in our daily lives and in what we can reach and what we can, advocate for. And, not everybody has a mass scale that they can do things on, but the people who do should be doing them. There are people who do. There are lots of people who do, but not enough. And thank you to the people who do, because where would we be without that? But the truth is there are so many people who believe that the material is more important than the human aspect to things, that, we can look at somebody who is houseless and judge them versus try to, identify their basic needs and what's really going on with them and what they need help with. There are times where we can look at a conflict that's going on in the world, and instead of saying any type of loss of life is a terrible situation, and then, cheer or take sides or be happy that a side won instead of conflict was just, peacefully resolved. I don't know. I know that that's going to be a controversial thing to say, but I really do feel that way, that, like, any loss of life is a tragedy. It's not that there aren't lessons behind those things. You have to, for yourself, ask, your higher power, whether it be God or the universe or, wisdom. I don't know. I think atheists are into logic, right? why that specific type of event took place, and everyone will come up with their own answer. But that doesn't mean that the answer negates the tragedy. That doesn't mean that, like, we're not, like, I firmly believe that all of these pieces of conflict are happening so that we will all wake up to understand that something material is not more important than a person's life. There is nothing in this world that is more important than a human being. I mean, the world obviously existing is important for human beings to exist. So, of course, we want to take care of the earth. And I suppose that's a material thing, but it's more living than material. But when you talk about land as a possession, that's material. You know, many tribal communities don't talk about ownership, they talk about guardianship or stewardship or just, you know, taking care, and whatever their word is for that, because they don't own anything. They're grateful for what is provided to them by the things that they take care of. You know, the grass is green where you water it. Things are clean where you clean them. Love is present where you share love. And we are experiencing several places in the world that are existing through a lack of love and the idea that violence will solve a problem versus trying to have peace and understanding and love and compromise in a safe and healthy and fair way. And those are really going to that's really only going to be the answer. Like, if you can't get to that place, you're not going to have an answer to the problem. You're not going to have an answer to the conflict. You're not going to have any resolution. You're going to have, you know, a ceasefire, and you're going to have another issue not too long down the road. And that's, you know, what we keep finding ourselves in several places in the world, you know. People are not satisfied. People think that they think this, they think that, and then they try to attain these ideals for themselves versus caring about what they're doing to people to attain these goals for themselves. Like, the goals have become larger than the lives that you took to get there. And there is no innocent country. There is, you know, every single country is guilty of doing something to some group at some point over the last just 500 years, honestly. Maybe, I'll take that back. Maybe there's some tribal communities in some countries where they don't want to be found yet. Or that they've, you know, they probably haven't really, but they also, like, there's a very vast history of, you know, certain tribal communities having very, I don't know how to put this without sounding inappropriate. Violent ways within their own tribe of leadership of things, you know. But that's not my place to speak. It's not my community. But what I am witnessing in my community in a first world country is that even that everybody is trying to take sides, and no one is trying to take the side of caring about everybody. Even the people who are professing that they care about everybody will still knowingly cause harm publicly to other people and think nothing of it. Think that they're doing the right thing. the retaliation, the revenge in their mind is normal and okay. Like, when you see a child that's bullied at school, you don't, let's imagine you have a child and your child is bullied at school. You don't go to the school and try to beat up that kid. You don't find that kid's parents and try to beat up that kid's parents. Like, that is crazy. Nobody does that, You try to instill love in your child. You honor their pain. You hold them. You try to teach them how to be strong, no matter what they say. You maybe call the other person's parents and ask them to teach their child not to do that. And hopefully it becomes something that, can be talked about and that their parents do honestly take seriously and teach them to be, more loving individuals themselves. But as adults, when we see conflict, that's not what we do. But it should be what we do. We should try to, help the person that got harmed and make sure that their life is restored, and then find somebody who can get through to the person who caused the harm, whether it be, a person that they look up to, a mentor, a cherished figure, and ask them to communicate with them in a way that helps them perceive the situation in a better way. But you can see, even with, the politics of our country over the last 10 years, that we've normalized violence when we don't get our way. We've normalized retaliation. We've normalized revenge. We've normalized harming someone when we feel hurt. Not healing the places that were hurt and seeking, those restorative situations that bring more love into our lives. We seek out how to harm another person, how to take from somebody else the way that we feel they took from us. And that is a major contribution to conflict in our world. The lack of love, the lack of understanding, the need for sensationalizing retaliation and revenge, the need to sensationalize anything emotional. We're not spending enough time, I guess is what I'm getting at, honoring the sacred parts of life, which would be humanity, how we treat each other, love, genuine connection between each other. We are sensationalizing things. We are, trying to broadcast everything. We're trying to, I don't know if it's like social media, but we're trying to create an ad for everything we go through in our lives. Not just sharing to build community. We are sharing to prove. We are sharing to gain attention. We are giving our attention to all the wrong things, typically. And I hope that we can all begin to cherish the smaller, more sacred things, to let go of the stuff that no longer serves you. I look around my room and I think about a year ago how many of these things I'd be willing to let go of, what I thought I would hold on to, what I want to, and there's not much I want to hold on to. There's not much that I feel like I need, And as a kid, I was very much, the more resources, the better, because then if I want to do this thing, I've already got all the stuff for it. But now I've grown, I guess, to a new place in my life, and I see the value in it, the deep value in, not having so many things. Not that I have a lot of stuff, but the emotional attachment I put on things, I think, is similar to, the type of intensity other people put on gaining more things, gaining more followers, having a bigger bank account. And I'm not shaming anybody for having a large bank account, enough to spare and share, enough to have what you need in your life and live a comfortable life, and to share and to have enough in case of an emergency. But beyond that, you don't need that. You're keeping money from people who need it at that point. Unless you are going to create a space where you provide income for other people and you genuinely are providing a life for them. Not just a job where you take all of their work and you pay them money, but they have nothing outside because they're depleted from the work that you make them do. If you have the extra money, you're supposed to be helping other people's lives prosper, not taking from their life so your life can prosper. You don't need to have so much. No one needs to have so much. So much power, so much land, so much money, so much resources that other people don't have. You need to have enough to spare and share for those in your community, and then let the rest go to people who need it, so that those people can have and stop living in survival mode. And I, by no means, am like a person who has and amasses, but even just the small ways in which I am changing my perspective on how much I would like to have in my life and how much I would like to let go of is, it is an important lesson for me to understand how to let go of the material and different reasons that I have held on to material things. And it's always been out of a fear, kind of scarcity mindset. Like if I want to do that, I won't have it to just do it when I'm ready. But it's not necessary. And how many of us are living in a weird scarcity mindset versus an abundant mindset of providing not only a life for ourselves, but a life for other people? That we care about the quality of life of the people around us, that we care about the opportunities that we present not only to ourselves, but to the others in our lives and to the others who we will encounter. There are some wonderful role models, but there are not enough. And you don't have to be a huge, figure to do this. This can be, done in a neighborhood level. Just the idea of having a young person shovel an elderly person's driveway of snow during the wintertime. That's enough energy to spare and to share. Your kid could run around your house, during the winter, or they could assist somebody in their neighborhood who can't do for themselves. Little things can be just as impactful as large things. And it's important for us to have humanity be bigger than the material. What is the point of owning your time if what you do with your time is waste it? Is be selfish? Is rest beyond self-care? And to the point where you're, in sloth. That's a waste. It's greedy. And this is the reason in a very first world way, on a very small scale, that larger problems like the ones that we see in conflict in the world are happening. People do not want to share resources. They want to live in the idea that there is not enough to go around, but there is plenty to go around if we want to get it there, if we want to work together to make sure that everybody has it. But that's the question. Do you want to make sure that everybody in your neighborhood is okay? Why live there if you don't care about your neighbors? Move to a place where you care about your neighbors. And if you don't care about your neighbors because you've never cared about your neighbors, you need to start looking at why you don't care about the people around you. What is hurting inside of you that you don't care about having a bond with the people you live near? I'm not saying you gotta be best friends, but you should care that the people around you are well, that everybody's okay. And so much of our world is, well, I will give it to this person because I prefer them, and I will give it to that person because I prefer them, but I'm going to deny that person because I don't like them, and I'm also going to encourage other people to not help them because I don't like them. That's so foul. We all just need to do better in showing up for the world, which starts by showing up the best we can for ourselves and really understanding, the resources that we do need, how to love ourselves, how to, have good self-care practices, how to show up for ourselves, how to let go of the things that burden us, because the things that burden us aren't ours. As it's a whole nother topic, but, when you're in a relationship with somebody who isn't yours, you fight all the time. And I mean yours like on a soulmate level, like when somebody isn't your person, you can't keep that together. You can't. No matter how hard you try, you can't. You just can't. And I know you know what I mean. Like if you've ever been in a relationship with somebody who just isn't yours, like no matter how bad you want it to work, no matter how much chemistry there is, you just do not show up for each other in a way that makes you feel loved and secure and healthy and happy. And there's always conflicts. There's always tension. There's always something wrong, and by holding on to that relationship, by continuing to try again with somebody that you know is not for you, you're keeping that person from the person that they're supposed to be with, who is probably also with somebody else that they're not supposed to be. It's a whole entire domino effect. But it comes down to the personal healing of saying, what, I want to be happy. I want you to be happy. And not that it won't be sad to have you not around, but because I genuinely want you to be happy, I want to see you with the person that you're meant to be with, because that means that you're going to be the most healed version of yourself. Not that you're going to be healed before you get with that person, but that person's going to show up in the way that nobody else did. Let's say that, let's say that you have, past trauma and people not showing up when you cry. They just do not show up. Nobody held you as a child, or when they did, it just wasn't, the right way. The person that you are meant to be with will know instinctually to at least show up and ask you, what can I do? And really mean it. And then do what you ask in a way that helps you. And all of a sudden that trauma isn't trauma anymore. Because there is a lot of trauma that is in how people have shown up for you. But it's because not the right people were in your life to show up for you. So it is your job to heal and let go of the resources, and that includes relationships and people that are not yours, because it's not healthy for you to keep hanging on to it. It's not healthy for you to keep showing up for a person who you're not supposed to show up for. It's not healthy for you to keep giving to people you're not supposed to be giving to. And that is a lot of the inner work that needs to be done, when you have what you need. When you have your basic needs met, it is time for you to do the inner work of understanding, am I showing up as my most loving, most abundant self? And if not, why? Am I giving to the wrong places? Am I holding on to the wrong things? Am I going after the wrong stuff? Because there is infinite abundance in the universe, and everybody, there is the capability of everybody having what they need and what makes them happy, if what they're looking at making them happy is on, their soul level for their highest good. And that's just a lot of what we're lacking right now. So although this did seem like it took a tangent, I am aligning with my higher self, and it is awkward. This work is awkward. It's awkward to say this no longer serves me, and I really thought that it did, and there's no shame in that. People want to make you feel ashamed. There's no shame in saying, I'm not going to continue to do something that's not right for me. There's no shame in that. I'm just, that is one of the most loving things that you can do in your life, is acknowledge that something isn't right for you and make a healthy, loving exit strategy for that thing. Like the stuff that I get rid of, I'm not going to just get rid of it. I want to sell it to people who need it, people who will love it, people who will cherish it, people who will enjoy it. Those are the things that those are the types of things that I want to do with my stuff. Not that I'm going to be in massive control of it, but it's just like, I've got some music gear, and hopefully it'll go to the hands of, student musicians who need it. Like that's important to me, that it goes to the places that somebody is in need and they need it and will enjoy it and take care of it in the way that they're like grateful to have it, because I don't need this resource anymore. I want it to go to somebody who genuinely needs it. Because I love that thing, right? But it doesn't serve me anymore. But I want it to go to somebody it will serve. I want the community of people who will benefit from it to receive it. And that is not the focus of the majority of our world. And that is a huge problem. So, just to let you know, it makes you really, really happy to let go of things that aren't yours. I think they call it the post-breakup glow-up, right? I don't know. I'm having a post-own-it glow-up. Just even the idea that I'm going to rid myself of stuff that I had really wanted for a long time, but that just really isn't serving me anymore. I'm going to let it go and have things that are for me and take care of the things that are mine, And my hair is liking it, so I'm going to tell you right now that it makes things better. Like, there's pain, there's grief, but once you get through, because I think the pain and the grief and the crying really comes from an energy you're holding on to, and it's so stressful that you're holding on to this thing. You're so tight somewhere. And when you cry and you release and you let it go and you really grieve the process, you feel so much freer afterwards, so much more free. I'm not sure what the grammatically correct way to say that is, but you feel so much more free afterwards after letting go of things that aren't yours. And when you let go of things that aren't yours, you get to be your most beautiful self, whatever that looks like. You get to love in the most beautiful way. You get to have in the most beautiful way. You get to engage with the world in the most beautiful way that is possible for you, in the most unburdened way. And when we all get to that place, a very utopian society, well, that's going to be the end of conflict. So it's all about doing your work. It's all about making sure that you're in that balance of what's a part of your highest good, and letting go of things that aren't for you. Imagine, even if you were the richest person in the world, right? If you don't like managing money, that feels like hell. Having too many things is a lot to take care of. I always explain it to people, like, you shouldn't have a bigger house than one you can clean, or one that you can afford a maid service to clean for you. And you should value that maid service. But you should never have something larger than you can take care of, right? And if you can't clean it, then you shouldn't have a house that big, because the house is going to become dilapidated. And then you've wasted a house that somebody else needed after you, Houses weren't meant to last 10, 15, 20 years and then just fall apart. When you take care of them and you notice what's going on with them, they last for hundreds of years. And a lot of times people find themselves, getting things that are too big for them. Getting things that are too much for them. Don't buy a dog you can't walk, because it's too big for you to walk. It pulls you too much, it hurts you. Get a small little dog that's happy with being in an apartment that you can just play with, that just needs small little short walks, that doesn't pull. Don't buy a plant you can't water. A lot of my plants I buy that I can actually propagate in water, because it doesn't require me to water them often. They live in water. See? Little things like that. I still like to have greenery, but, I have succulents that don't need to be watered that often, and I have water plants because I am disabled and I'm not always able, I'm getting better, but I'm not always able to get up and water my plants. But I can make the commitment to a succulent and I can make the commitment to a water plant. Those are good plans for me right now. As I get better, I might be able to have stuff that's actually has a watering schedule. But until then, I want to have my most beautiful life. And that doesn't mean having tons and tons of stuff. It means having the right stuff for me. There is no subscribing to minimalism or maximism that's going to give you the recipe for life. It's about having what you can take care of. So if you can provide jobs to people that, make their life better, then please provide those jobs, because we need employers who do that. But if you're going to, supply jobs to people, provide these opportunities that take their lives from them, where their whole life is working and they don't have any, time to develop quality relationships in their lives, then stop offering those jobs. You are not meant to be an employer. An employer wants their employees to have their work-life balance in balance. Just because you have the money doesn't mean you're meant to be an employer. There's a certain set of skills for that. Not that I say, of course I want jobs for people, but these are the things. If you don't know how to run a company, don't run a company. If it's going to cause you a headache to run a company, don't run a company. It's simple things like that people think, well, I'm going to get really good at this skill, and then I'm going to start a company because I got to, create a business for myself. And I do that, and then as my company grows, I'm going to scale it, and then I'm going to employ some other people. But then you don't like the way that, let's say that you're a finished carpenter, and all of a sudden people love your work so much, and then they want you to do, and you've got too many jobs, and so you hire somebody else, but you hate the way everybody else works. Then you need to stop taking so many jobs. You maybe need to charge more money and not, and have a limited quality or a limited quantity of work. I'm not saying you have to limit your income, but you do need to limit, if you aren't satisfied, it's better than having an employee that you're disgruntled with every day. Maybe you are not meant to have a lot of work done. Maybe you are meant to have very finite number of pieces that are valued so extremely high because they're rare. It all depends on what you're actually, what brings life into who you are. What allows you to become the most compassionate, loving, wise, aligned person you can be. And I know from personal experience that there's a lot of things that you think that you should do, and they're not necessarily, it's the unhealed version of you who's saying, I need to do this to heal. And I might even tell you for a while from the inside that this is for you, because if you don't believe that it's for you, you're not going to invest deeply enough in it to heal. But do not have shame in letting it go if after you've healed something, this no longer applies to you. You don't put burn cream on someplace where the burn has healed. You stop putting the burn cream on, And so there are things that I have done in my life where I am too healed to care about what it takes to do that thing. It's not something I want to continue to do. Not that I don't love the thing, it's just what it takes to do that thing I no longer have interest in. There are certain things about technology I'm not interested. I used to be really interested in staying up on technology. Now I don't care. It causes me such a headache. I want to have my phone work. I want to have my iPad work. I want to have my computer work. But having no, beyond that, no, I don't know. I guess eventually I'm probably going to have to get used to an electric car. Okay, fine. But that's what I'm going to need at that time to have my life be what it needs to be. so that I can be the most loving, compassionate person. And I'm okay with letting go with what doesn't serve me. I'm okay with like bringing in things that I didn't think were for me before, but they are now, because I'm a different version of myself. I'm turning into my butterfly and I'm loving it. And this is what it takes. It takes breaking the abscess. It takes being honest with what's not serving you. It takes letting go. It takes being willing to share. It takes wanting to be part of a community. If you're not wanting to be a part of your community, you're not part of the right community for yourself yet. And that might be because you have more healing to do to draw that community to you. But you need to know that if you don't want to be a part of what's going on around you, it's because you are not part of what you need to be a part of yet. And find it. Do the work and find it. Find your most loving self. Find your most fulfilled self. Find the person who can show up compassionately for another person and have understanding. Because we need it. We all need it. We all need the people to do their work so that we can show up for each other in the right ways, so that we can have the right friends, so that we can have the right community, so that we can have the right coworkers, so that we can be in the right roles with the right people, and we can end the majority of the conflict going on. Because that's how it all starts. It starts at home. It starts within ourselves. It starts with us wanting to align with, our heart-centered selves, our highest selves, our loving selves. And when we do that, we will bring about the change that we always say we want to see.